All right. This is my mom, Dena Kay Nielson. So by the time this comes out, your book should be out as well. This is her second book, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
You can kind of explain to everybody, if you wouldn't mind, like kind of going through where you started as an entrepreneur and kind of like the steps that you took to get where you are now.
Okay, so when I was little, I was 7 years old and I started the martial arts. And that's probably where my journey began. And I loved it and I practiced every day. And it brought something into my life that probably most people didn't have because it incorporated a lot of body, mind, and spirit aspects. And I started meditating. And I can remember being a few years into the martial arts, and we went to one of my instructors over in Levan, and he had a special guest come in. And he was doing different experiments with your thoughts and your mind and the power of your mind. And I can remember thinking, this is amazing. And I was just little, and I think it sparked an interest in me. And I was 12 years old when I received my black belt. And my parents and my brother and my sister did karate with me as well. So it was kind of something that we did together as a family. And when we all received our black belts, we opened our own karate studio, which is called the dojo.
Right.
And we started to teach. And so I've taught ever since I was 12 with my parents, and I've continued ever since. So
nice.
yeah.
And you've done karate for how long? Like, how long have you been teaching? Have you always done it here in Delta?
Yeah, I moved away for a couple years, and other than that, I've been actively involved in teaching students.
For how long?
I would say, oh, you're really going to make me give away my age.
you don't
Over
have to.
30 years.
Over 30 years.
Yes.
That's awesome. How many black belts have you gotten in that time?
You know, I was looking at it a couple years ago when we did, it was probably a couple months ago when we did the last black belt test, and I was trying to count them all up. And I think that there's close to 27 students, which that is a huge number. If anybody knows anything about the martial arts, it is actually a lifelong journey. It's not something that you just get quickly, and it takes a lot of dedication and perseverance in order to get a black belt. And I have a little thing that kind of tells us statistics, but actually 1 in 10,000 kids actually that start the martial arts receive a black belt. So that's pretty great, 27 black belts.
Do you know how many people that you've taught over the years, that as far as how many people haven't gotten their black belts and the people that have followed all the way through, or not something that you kept track of?
I never really kept track of that, but I know that when I go walk through the schools, I know a lot of the kids, and it's just fun to interact and to see the growth of the kids. Even if they get a black belt or not, the martial arts is such a way to ensure self-confidence in kids, and it helps them to know that they're not going against anybody else. It's all about yourself and self-improvement, and you can be and make it whatever you want it to be, depending on how hard you choose to work and what you choose to put into it. And that's one thing I love about the martial arts. And I also love that it incorporates not just the physical aspects of life, but the mental aspects as far as breathing and emotions, and teaching the kids to meditate, and they'll look at you like you're crazy when they first come. And then even if they still don't understand it, I think of one kid, and he got his black belt from me, and he's like, I never really understood it. But after he got his black belt a few years later, he wrote me a note and telling me how it really did change his life, even though he didn't know at the time how important it was going to be for him later on in life, and the things that he had to go through. And life challenges, I think that's what it helps with more than anything.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And self-discipline is another huge aspect of it. I know that you taught me karate for 13 years, probably 14 years. I don't know. Well, I helped with you teaching as well for a few of those years, probably around 4 of those years.
Yeah.
But the 9 years that I was working towards getting my black belt, I remember there was a lot of times where I felt like it wasn't going to be worth it for me. And, there is a lot of those times where you feel like, man, I do just kind of want to give up. I remember specifically at like red brown belt feeling like that, which is so close. I mean, you're right there and you're like, man, it's just, I don't feel like any of it's coming together. But I remember you working with me every day, and I know that a lot of other kids probably didn't work every day, but you could see the difference when it came to the black belt test of you spending 30 extra minutes or an hour every single day other than the once or twice a week that we would have class, and how much improvement I had and what I was able to do in the actual black belt test, even versus some of my, peers. But not that they didn't do amazing as well. It's just like the improvement from the previous test to when I got my black belt personally, I think was the biggest note, and you could really see that within me, that I really had to dedicate myself and be disciplined and, just prove that that was something that I wanted and wanted to complete and do. But you have to realize that within yourself. And like, what kind of brought you to that? Like, was it just you always wanted that? Like, how long did it take you to realize that you wanted to like teach karate for an extended period of time?
In your heart and your soul, and you just kind of have these callings and these whisperings and the things that you just love in life. It was something that I always loved. Like, most people don't get their black belt from 7 to 12 years old. Like, that is unheard of. I practiced every day. Like, you can ask grandma. Like, I would come home from school and I would practice for 2 hours, and then we'd have dinner, and then I'd be practicing some more. Like, it was just my passion. Mm. And I think because maybe it was the catalyst to help me later on in life for what was to come. Because, I think that we have these things that show up in our lives because maybe we have a greater mission down the road, and it was the catalyst to bring that tripart being, as far as body, mind, and spirit, awakening within me. And I think that that's where my true passion came. It wasn't even as much as the karate and the competitions. I mean, my dad was taking me to competitions every weekend. Like, we did it as a family, and not that it doesn't feel good to like be recognized for your hard work. But it was more than that for me. Mm-hmm. Always more than that for me. And it's just like listening to you talk about it, at the time. I think that once you finally decided, when you were at red brown belt and you were like, oh, I just don't know. And I have so many kids. That's when I lose a lot of students. But listening to you, and you said, I had to finally decide that this is what I wanted for me. Mm-hmm. And once I see the kids do that, I just see this huge, like, all the effort gets put into it and they work hard. It's like, I'm not doing this for my mom and dad anymore. Or I'm not doing it for somebody else outside of me, which is always never the right reason for anything.
Yeah.
So once we finally turn inward and be like, yeah, I want this because I've worked so hard to be where I'm at and I want to finish. Mm-hmm. And anybody like who takes somebody and sees, oh, they had karate with Dena Kay Nielson, they know that those kids can work. Right. And they know that they push themselves because I push them to be the best. Right.
Especially locally, I think that it does hold weight whereas a lot of other places might not have, places that aren't currently in business anymore teaching karate or, doing, like, you're probably one of the only places here now that does karate anymore, which is kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, I think there is. I know that there's another lady that teaches karate in town, and she's amazing as well. So, okay. Yeah.
Nice. I remember for a while, this is something like we all have to overcome, but you had this thing where it was like you saw somebody else teaching, and it kind of brought like maybe not an anger, but like scare us. Like I guess there's this idea of scarcity that a lot of people have. It's like if they're doing it and I'm doing it, what's gonna happen? Are people gonna leave to go to them? How do you overcome that?
I think for me, it was never that I didn't want the other person to succeed. It was that I've always had the hardest time putting myself out there and advertising, and I never have. Like, I think that that's one of the stumbling blocks that I have in my life is putting myself out there and being in the spotlight, because I have a hard time with that. Rather, not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. Definitely something that I need to work on. I know that I'm not perfect, and I know that I could probably help a lot more people if I was willing to step forward into that. And I know that that's where I'm going, but it's like even with my books, you know, I write them and they have to sit there for a very long time before I can actually move forward with it. My first book I wrote in 2012. And before that, I'd never published the very first book that I wrote, because it was for my own healing. Mm-hmm. But then when I did publish my second book, it wasn't until 2018, and I wrote it in 2012. So for me, I think it's recognizing that my soul is speaking louder than my ego mind, and realizing if I don't do it, my soul is dying inside. So for me, I think that when that happened, it was realizing that the love that I had for karate overrides any fear that I should allow that comes into it. And I think that when I did that, always in my life, when I moved to a place in my heart and know who I am and what I've worked for, I think it changes the aspect of everything, because you have two choices in life, love or fear. And always, whenever I choose fear, I'm backpedaling for years, trying to get myself where I could have been in the first place if I would have just settled in and realized, you know what, you can do this. It's okay. Like it's a letting go more than anything, I think.
Yeah.
A letting go.
That makes sense. There's a fly in here. So take me on the steps of like how you went from karate and then hair. You started doing hair. That would have been after. Was that straight after high school?
So I actually graduated from high school with my cosmetology license and degree. Okay. So I've kind of always pushed myself, and I've always liked to be involved. Like, I have a million things on the back burner all the time, or else I'm always learning something new. And people are like, how do you do that? Well, that's just who I am. Like, I love to learn. I love to grow. And so that started in 2018. And the very first house that I built, my dad put a salon in it for me. My dad, he's always been my greatest supporter in everything that I've done, and so proud of me, and the hardest worker that I have ever known. And he put a salon in my first house, and then he helped me build my second house, and also put a salon in there. So it's kind of, it was kind of something that I always did. And then the steps continued to grow after cosmetology, and it was kind of my bread and butter. You know what I mean? It put me through. And I think that because of the creation aspect of all of this, it's like, I love to create. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know that I like to as much as I do, because I can remember, you know how awesome Dad is as an artist? Yeah. And he could draw the most awesome pictures and everything. And I can remember when we first got married, and I'd sit down and I'd try to draw a face, and it looked like a blob with two eyes on it. I literally had no artistic abilities, and I didn't know how much my soul wanted to create inside of me. And it wasn't until I went through my first Dark Night of the Soul that I actually awakened to the fact that I am an artist. And I started painting about 4 years ago. And I look at it sometimes and I just laugh, and I'm like, did I really do that? Yeah. I mean, you know, it's kind of amazing the things that we think that we can't do, but when we actually sit down and start to do it, and we trust and we allow our soul to come through, that soul essence, that part of us that loves to create, like we're creators, that's who we are. Mm-hmm. I think that it came alive within me, and maybe it was always there. I don't know. Like, we stifle ourselves from being the best that we always are from our belief that we can't do something. So I think a lot of that was my own doing.
Right. So was it the first book or the second book that you kind of had this like realization, or I don't know, like you explained it to me before as like this come to moment, like this awakening, right?
Yes.
So was it before you started writing your first book that you had that?
Yeah, I definitely believe that my whole life, I think that Spirit was speaking to me and trying to get me to listen, and out of fear. This is always the thing that stops me, but out of fear, I would push it away. I would push away my ability to feel things and know things. I don't know if you know what clairsentience is or claircognizance. It's like these clear knowings and these clear feelings. And I struggled my whole life feeling spirits. I mean, this is kind of weird to even talk about, but I didn't want to be weird. I didn't want people to think I was weird. I was scared because I had a grandma who they thought was psychotic and put her on medicine. And I definitely didn't want to tell anybody that I was having all this happen. And I just kept running away from it, pushing away from it, fear. And I'm not kidding. One thing after another kept occurring in my life that kept breaking my defenses down until I finally couldn't run anymore. I mean, I seriously even used to live across from a mortuary, and I had to move away because it got so bad. I remember when my husband's cousin was in there, he had passed, and he was standing in my room. And this was after I had like pushed
a figure of him?
like a figure of him
Okay.
through my third eye. And you can only imagine like that fear that sets in when you're not ready to step into that, because it doesn't have to be scary, but it was scary because I was scared that somebody was going to think I was psycho.
Right. You didn't understand what was happening.
I didn't. And I didn't want to be different. All I wanted my whole life was to fit in and to have people love me. I just wanted to be loved and accepted for who I was. And I never felt that I was. A lot of that was to do with the fact that we live in a small town that's very religious minded.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not active member of the church at the time. And I think that it was always a part of me that wanted to be accepted and loved by the community. And I surely didn't want to be different in any way. I didn't want to stand out. And I moved, and things continued to happen. And it wasn't until one of my best friends lost her child, and I went to the hospital, and this is not my story to tell, but it sent me on a spiral for 1.5 years into the dark night of the soul. And I don't know if you know what a dark night of the soul is.
Yeah, can you explain that?
It was almost as if you're experiencing the ego mind through separation and fear. It was like I could not connect to the aspect that I was something more than my human body. It was like this fear had come upon me, and I didn't know who I was and what I was supposed to be doing and why was this happening to me. And the dark night of the soul makes you begin to question everything that you ever once believed to be true. And it's almost an unlearning and a letting go of what you've been taught to be or become, or who we have to be in order to be loved and accepted, into realizing that I wasn't ever...
I could hear it in
the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't ever supposed to fit in.
Yeah.
I think none of us are. And I think that if we would see every person in their divinity, that they would be able to see themselves in their divinity as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's what stops us, as we expect everybody to be who we are, and we don't allow other people to be who they are and love them, even
Right.
if it's not what you believe.
This is something I've talked about, or I've heard talked about a lot recently, is like we're all very, what's the right term? I don't know, we all like a culture that we can be the same with each other, like very tribal. I guess.
Yeah.
And which makes sense. I mean, it's probably in our DNA, you know? So it's hard when you see somebody that has kind of like left your tribe in a way. And, you know, it's hard to try to accept somebody after they have done that, because we're so used to, you know, being a part of each other, which in a lot of ways can be really good. But in other aspects, it's very unaccepting of a lot of people that have decided to change or, you know, make any type of difference in their life, which can be somewhat sad in ways, because it ends up, you know, pushing away a lot of people that you don't need to push away. We should be more willing to accept each other for who we are at all times, no matter what kind of person we become, you know. And I think that's a difficult aspect of life, in that there's some people that go down roads that you don't want to see them go down, but you also have to realize that people are making life choices at their own pace, and that's going to teach them their own thing at their own time. And I don't know, for you, how did that kind of work its way into, I don't know, getting you to this point, I guess, since that's kind of the road that we're going down. What were the steps after realizing, like, okay, it is okay to be my own person, to step away from this tribe? Like, what were the steps after that?
Yeah, so when I went through the dark night of the soul and I recognized that, and maybe you should write a book, you know, a lot of the things that you're talking about is specifically what I talk about, and recognizing that we love other people, no matter whether they're going through their dark night of the soul or they're at their peak of enlightenment. It doesn't matter. We're all the same. And to let go of separation and know that what we inflict upon another, we're also inflicting upon ourselves. And that is some of the greatest things that I learned through this process. And I think that was my breakdown phase. The dark night of the soul is always the breakdown phase, and that was not the only dark night of the soul that I've went through in my life. I think that people that start this happening, that's kind of the first step. And it was one thing after another that kept breaking down my ego mind. It's those senses. And that's a lot of what I talk about in my book, is this process of breaking down the ego mind and the belief that we have to do everything for everybody else. And what we impose on another, we're also imposing on ourselves. The mirror image that somebody else is showing us oftentimes is what we need to see the most inside of ourselves, that we can't see because we can only see it as somebody else's faults, but it's actually our own, and they are shining the light for us, you know, and we think of them as the villain. Oh, they're the villain. They're showing up as these bad people, and it's their fault, and we become the victims of our own stories that we create in our mind, that somebody's doing something to us.
Yeah.
When all actually we are creating the story, and we're making it real by what we're thinking in our mind about it. Perspective is everything. And I think more in my first book, I gave more tools and understanding about how to get through a lot of this stuff. This is actually stepping into a higher consciousness and letting go of the limitations that we place upon ourselves.
Okay. Does that mostly have to do with like belief systems, or?
A lot of it does. I think it's questioning the belief systems, but this is even moving into the higher mind. And for me, the higher mind is what I would say that we all are. We're not our human bodies, right? I believe that we're so much more. Like, I think that we're never born and that we never die, and that we continue to evolve and grow and love and express and become greater and greater aspects of who we most want to be. And ultimately, what I wanted 15 years ago is probably not the same thing that I would say that I wanted now. But I think that the steps of growing into that come through the evolution of the soul. And so for me, a lot of this is about soul recognition and realizing that we're not separate. You know, Derek, you may want different things in life than I do, but ultimately it doesn't matter to me. I love you no matter what you want in life, and I know that you feel the same about me. And a lot of times, you know, we don't align with our thoughts and our perspectives and everything, but we have this love in our family. I'm so blessed that I do believe that you grew up a lot different than a lot of other kids, because I gave you the chance to be who you are and to speak your truth, because I did know the detriment that is caused by enforcing and inflicting my opinion on somebody else, because you're here to live your own path and your own evolution of the soul. And so I do think that my kids probably were blessed in that way to have a mom that showed unconditional love.
I think so. I think that that's very true, especially because I can see it with a lot of my, you know, friends or acquaintances where they were forced into a certain ideology, and it pushed them to something that they didn't really want to end up being. You know, if you're forced into like these, I don't know if you call them like moralities or what. I think the morale of it is good, especially in like certain religions and stuff. But I think when you force on, I guess, just ideologies and religious points of views, and you don't allow somebody to explain how they feel about it, it can cause a lot of hatred and you know, a despise, I guess, to end up not wanting that in the future. And a lot of them that I know now, my acquaintances, still believe in some type of, you know, higher power, like a god, or, you know, certain aspects of the religion, but they just don't follow the strict rules of the religion, which I think should be good enough. You know, like, I think that if you have a set of morals, that is like a defining aspect of what people should be.
Absolutely. And I'm not one to say whether religion is good or bad. I think that it's an aspect of the soul, and a lot of people need the community and that love that it provides. And I think that it does give you a good moral background. And I believe that God is in everything. So whether you're sitting at church or we're sitting on the back porch, God is everywhere if you're willing to see the aspects of that. I mean, it's in the flowers and the trees, and it's just that universal presence that's in you and in me, and we get to let everybody live their life according to their greatest desires and plans.
Mm-hmm. So what do you see God as? Is it like a consciousness to you, or like, is it a living thing? Like, what do you really, I don't know, like it.
So to me, God is everything. God is a universal presence that's connects us all together as one. And I guess that might be a weird thing to say, but I believe that you're God and I'm God, and the neighbor across the street is God, that a piece of that. So if you think of your body and, you know, every aspect of your body it takes to create this miraculous being that can breathe for itself, and it just does all the work without you even consciously thinking about it. But if I didn't have even, you know, my liver, or if I didn't have my heart, or I didn't have the cells and tissues, I would not function as a whole. So there's no part that's any less than the other part. So I kind of think of God as the universe, the cosmos, that all that is of everything, and we are one aspect of the source of all that is. And to me, that is pure love. Mm. When we can get to a state, and we can reach that state that we're in this space that we can look at somebody who may have committed the most horrible act, and we can still see the divine light in them, because whatever it took for them to be in that space is not who they truly are. We need more love and forgiveness and kindness in the world, and recognize that it's, we're pulled into so many different aspects of darkness that you say yes to that, and then pretty soon you don't even recognize that that's not who you want to be anymore. And then you start doing worse and worse and worse. And I do believe with a lot of this, people see them as bad and they believe they're bad. I think that the frequencies that align to us and our beliefs, if we believe that we're not worthy and somebody else sees us as not worthy, it all comes together in a frequency that creates more unworthiness.
Mm.
So it is recognizing that there's divinity in everyone. There is a light in everyone. And what if you're the person that can see that and help somebody else find that within themselves?
Mm.
That is my hope, that the whole world will awaken to this love that exists and know that we are one being, that we're one aspect of a higher consciousness source energy that is love.
I think in some cultures that's kind of described as like yin yang. I don't know, I like that idea as well. Like just that everything is working as one, and not just that you are good or are bad, but that it's all working together to try and make a balance. That's kind of the world I live in, versus maybe you like wanting to achieve this higher place, which is a beautiful thing. But I really enjoy the aspect of I don't know, I like the idea of like having good and bad to be able to balance everything out. Not that the bad is good in any way, but I think that we do require a balance in the state that we're in. Like as far as this human aspect, it's like we have to have both sides to be able to function. I explained to you the other day that it's like the worst part about hell would be not being able to talk about the thing that you were going through. Like if you're actually going through hell, like burning forever, if that's like something, not that I really believe in that, but if that was something that we did have to experience, like, or that certain folks had to experience, the worst part about it would be never being able to communicate about it. It would just be that you had to do that one thing forever. Because the good part about this is that you can experience the bullshit, the bad things, but the great part about it is that you can come together and talk about those things. Next thing you know, it's like this weight's off your chest and you're happy again. Like we're on this roller coaster ride that I happen to love, and I don't know. That's like, that's an amazing aspect of this to me, because that's where some of like my most appreciated people, like the things I appreciate most, like comedy, that's where a lot of that comes from, is the downs, but they make it into the ups where everybody can laugh and enjoy it together.
And that's so amazing, because we do live in a third dimensional reality and we do experience dark and light because of that. And it's not that I want to reach a higher consciousness. Absolutely not. Anybody who just is wanting to be enlightened will never be enlightened. I think that for me, it is the experience that has taught me to not stay stuck in the story. And so you talk about these comedians that like rise above what they went through, mm-hmm. and then they lift everybody up because of what they went through, rather than staying stuck in the story and poor me and I'm the victim. And that happens to a lot of people. And the victim mode is what keeps us trapped in hell. I believe that heaven and hell is within us.
Yeah.
And we get to decide through our own perspective and our own actions and our own ability to let go and surrender. I think that's the hardest thing, is surrendering and saying, calling upon your higher self and being like, I'm bigger than this body. Like there is a piece of me that is is connected to source energy, and I know that I'm bigger than this body, and knowing when I, Dena Kay Nielson, can't do it anymore, and saying, help me, help me, I need help. Like I surrender. And so you're right. Like, definitely it's not about reaching something higher. For me, it's about learning to be in the present, because it is the only thing that is real. So if I can just enjoy every moment of whatever I'm doing, that's the reality that I'm in, because that's the only thing that is real. And so that's what I'm grasping onto, is let's live every moment as if it was the only moment. Because the thoughts keep us trapped in hell from the past, or thinking about the future of what we need to accomplish or who we need to become, when in all actuality, that is heaven and hell.
Yeah. And the only thing that is happening is what is happening. You know, it's like the past is just memories. And if you were to experience it from a different perspective, it wouldn't be your same memories. So really, it's just kind of this made up story that we've created for ourselves. Like, is it real? Like, it's only real in here. So who's to say that it's actually real, like reality? I think this moment that we experience is that's our actual reality. And when you're in that moment, this moment, and what you are experiencing in this moment, that's as real as it gets. And I think that goes for like dreams too. Like, I think that, I mean, it's something that you're experiencing in that moment. Whether or not you're actually there is different, but it is what you're experiencing. And maybe the same goes for, these psychedelic experiences that people have and other things like that. I think that all that combined is just as real. It's reality, just like this is.
Absolutely. Our thoughts are creating our reality. And so we can stay in the past and be trapped, or we can live in the present and open that gift inside of us. I talk about in my new book about how many times have you got in the car and you've drove somewhere and you like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
You're like, oh crap, how did I get here? Like, you don't remember anything. You're so caught up in your mind. And I talk about, the way we label things, and a mountain, is just a mountain to the one who drives by it and sees it every day. But what about the next person who comes into Utah for the first place and they see this masterpiece, or the person who lives in the present and recognizing everything as if you're seeing it for the first time? That's the gift that presence gives you, because you're actually seeing everything with new eyes.
Yeah,
every moment of every day. Yeah, you're experiencing that, and so it just becomes this majestic treasure that you're witnessing, instead of just being,
try to be careful. These are really noisy. So sorry. You're good.
Yeah, I'm a hand talker.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. So anyways, I think that, that's true and important.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I like that. I like the experiencing idea of it. Like, I don't know, like a lot of times one of us will be sitting on the porch or something, we'll look at the clouds and be like, wow, it looks like a painting.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I like that experience, like those little moments of just like looking at something for something that it is, but just like having it be there in like this different kind of light is what's cool about it.
Yeah. And seeing it through somebody else's eyes, when we're out looking at the moon and I'm watching you look at the moon, or Dad look at the moon, or Braden, or I get these pictures from my kids and I'm like, I wonder how many kids actually recognize this or see the beauty in what's laying right there in front of their eyes. It's like, it makes me happy that you're living in the moment and enjoying that.
That's awesome. Can you go into a little bit more about kind of what this book is about, and just give like a I don't know. I want people to read it for themselves, and if that's something that they want to do. But yeah, just kind of go into a little bit about what it is that you experienced and what led you to write it, and kind of the feeling that you had while you were writing it, things like that.
Well, I have to say that I think that all of the things that I write come to me from my higher self. It's like a gift from my higher self of stuff that I need to heal within myself first and foremost.
Would you call that like that God energy that you were explaining?
Yeah, like the higher self is the greatest aspect of you that's connected to spirit on a deeper level at all times. And it's that part of you that may be living in a higher dimension, that knows no separation anymore, and that's here to heal your aching, breaking heart or your fear or frustrations. But the book, starts out a lot with the ego mind and recognizing that we are placed in this matrix of fear that keeps us trapped over and over and over again, trying to please the authorities over us who want to control and want us to believe in what they believe in. And then we get trapped in this mind game of manipulation. And now with the ego mind, though, it is important in the third dimensional reality to bring all aspects together as one. We need that aspect of us that is watching out for us, but we don't need the constant ridicule and hate and anger that it creates, or the ego mind will always see the worst in somebody else and the worst in yourself. It needs to be liberated and brought together, not separated. So separation is just going to create more hell in your mind. So it talks about how to let go. And, in the third chapter, I'm doing these meditations and this work and stuff. And at the end of the chapter, I simply wrote, you can be assured that if you just skipped these exercises that your ego mind is playing, is really leading the show in your life. It's not allowing you to try something new. It's not allowing you to be in the presence. Because this is about like realizing that, we have to change ourselves in order to create change in the world. And right now, the world is needing change. We are needing so much letting go. And I'm seeing what I experienced with my dark night of the soul, and I'm seeing that happening in the collective right now. And I think that so many people that woke up first to this knowledge that we're not separate, that we are one, this aspect of oneness has created this ripple effect of what you're seeing now, and all the old. So all the things that no longer align, I guess that would be the right word, that no longer align with who you truly are anymore, is falling away. And I'm seeing that happen collectively. You're seeing all this stuff happen, and the earth is changing. And I think it's because of all the people that are waking up and they experienced the dark night of the soul, and they started clearing all the false beliefs and the limitations through the small mind, and come to this place where there's no separation. And recognizing other people as showing you what you need to heal inside of you. At the end of every chapter, I summarize the chapters with my poems, and sometimes the poems speak way louder than the chapters themselves, because it comes from my heart. And I do believe my writings. I couldn't release this book because I didn't know how to market it. I didn't know how to aspect it. Like, was I channeling? Was I actually writing the information myself? You know what I mean? And I came to the conclusion that when you are one, you have access to all that is. And everything was being downloaded and opened up before me. It was like this eons of information that I have known probably my entire lifetime, but I was in such a state of fear that I couldn't access it. But yeah,
Sorry to cut you off. I think about that a lot with like just creations in general. Like you've talked a lot about how you've got gained a lot more of a appreciation for art and uh just everything like that, music. Like you've always done hair. You've always been a very artistic type of person. Even karate it's a martial art.
Yeah.
Um I think about that a lot, and like what led people to these like the airplane or the car or a laptop, anything, like everything that you see. I've said this before, but everything that you see in that isn't just like a plant or anything like that was created by a person. It's like, what is that is allowing us to just have this vision, or like are we getting just like it's almost like we're radios, and we're just like attaching ourselves to, to some type of wave, and all of a sudden you produce this thing that you never thought that you'd be able to do. Like, how did we come up with an airplane? Like something that was supposed to be impossible, flying, is now done daily. Like, I don't know, things like that are amazing to me. And it's the same when I like sit down to write. A lot of times it's like, where did that even come from? I don't know. Like, I'll have these funny moments that I didn't think that I would ever, be able to have. Like, there's these magical things that just come when you're in this, what a lot of people call the flow state. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that kind of like what you're experiencing when you're writing? Is that flow state?
I think so. And I think that comes with the connection to presence and recognizing that we are the aspect of God, like a piece of God. And I think blasphemy comes in through religion when we claim that we are God, like I am the only God. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we are God. And ultimately, as you go through the stages and the process of my book, it brings us back to a state of we instead of I. I think that what keeps us trapped is the I essence and everything about me, and when it's actually about we. What can we do in order to help each other grow and evolve? What if I decided to come to this life in order to be the villain for somebody else so that they may choose to find forgiveness and love in their life because that is what they wanted, and I love them that much. I love that person that much that I would show up to be the villain for them because they needed that growth through experience that we were talking about earlier. I talk about this in my book. I talk about how frequencies align, how you were just talking about frequencies. It's like a radio station, and we attract who we are and who we become, and how that can either put you in a state of detriment, or depending on if you are willing to do the work and raise your consciousness to a state of presence and being one with all that is, recognizing, that in another person who you don't understand, and still allowing them to experience that and love them. That is the ultimate creation. That is the ultimate creator, where we don't rule or reign. The days of being ruled and reigned over are coming to a halt, and people are realizing that by allowing somebody else to choose for them is not choosing. I mean, it's not a life. It's a detriment.
So what about all the pitfalls of society being like, because we're all kind of attached to this reality with money, objects, and so like for people to be able to overcome that and to truly do what they want to do, like writing or like stand-up comedy or art, painting, drawing, or if it's just creating, like the plane, for example, like what do you think it is that allows people to detach from the actual, like, is it possible to be able to detach from, I guess, the reality that we are set in and the money and the government and all that, and actually be able to become, I don't know, just happy with whatever it is that we want to do in the moment. Because I feel like a lot of people aren't. It's like, I can't think of who it was right now, but they had a quote, and it's like, sometimes I feel like I'm just doing a to-do list.
Yeah.
So like, how do you get out of the to-do list, and how do you get into just like, I guess not really a more permanent, but closer to permanent flow state?
I think the state of flow can only come through being in the present moment. And it is learning to let go of the top beliefs and the top behaviors and the mind that's sabotaging you. So as you walk up a mountain, Derek, like the very first time you walk up the mountain, there's weeds and there's crap all over the place, and you're trying to find your way to the top. But if you climb that mountain every day, it's like rewiring the brain. You eventually have a path that you've created that gets you into the state of flow. Now, for every person, that's different. Some people do breathing and yoga and meditation. For me, I love Qigong, and you see me meditating every morning, and it's this connection to presence and to the breath. And I've had to do all that, even though when I went through my dark night of the soul and this awakening where I was just downloaded with all this information, you still have to do something that creates a higher frequency. Mm-hmm. If you're not creating a higher frequency, you're still falling asleep. Again, I call it falling asleep. And when you fully awaken to the truth of who you are, that's when you're in the flow state, because you see yourself as the we.
Yeah.
As the creator, as the one of all that is, the oneness principle.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because there's kind of like a baseline for me, you know, and if I don't, like, I try to raise baseline every day. So for me recently, that has been like, what things do I want to attach myself to and become good at? So most recently, it's been like, I've focused a lot of time at the gym, and I've focused a lot of time at golf, and I've focused a lot of time with family. Like, those are three big things for me in my life currently. So I'll spend time every day. I mean, for the past few weeks, it's been every day at the gym. You know, I don't think I've had a day off in at least 2 weeks where I've consciously made an effort to go and spend at least an hour and try, because that's one step to making myself better. So, and that's kind of like the stepping stones for me. It's like, what can I do to make myself better? And then the next thing's like golf. So, you know, 2-3 times a week, I'm like, I want to go and do that, not just because I want to become good at it, but because it's something that I enjoy. And I can go and enjoy it alone, or I can go and enjoy it with friends. And I've got a few friends that love to go and do that with me. So I'm usually, a lot of times recently, I've been experiencing, you know, the gym on my own. And I'll see people there and have like conversations and stuff, and that makes it a lot better too. But it's more so just like the feeling achievement through that. And then golf, you know, feeling achievement through that. And sometimes I do really good, and sometimes I don't do good at all. It's like, okay, what can I do to become better? So then I'll spend a while every day just swinging a club, you know, even down here in the basement. It's like, I'll just kind of like go through how I feel. And like, I don't know, I think taking steps to making yourself better at something, it doesn't really matter what it is, I think that helps with achieving that as well, because then I'm not like, before, especially when I was like living in St. George, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety, and I noticed that a lot when I wasn't going to the gym or doing things for myself every day, you know. It's like I'd go to work and I'd spend entire days at work. Like, there was a while where I would go from one job to the other, like when I was working those two
Right.
jobs. And within 2 weeks, I hated everything about there was no time to be able to go to the gym. There was hardly time to eat. Like, so when I would eat, it would just be horrible food, like Wendy's, or, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever
Fast
was,
food.
yeah. And you notice it within yourself. And so, the next morning I'd wake up, go to work. Within an hour of being there, I would just have this like extreme anxiety. And I think that just came from not having any time for myself. And some people just have to do that. Like, some people don't have a choice because they have, family and things like that they have to take care of. I did have a choice. And so I ended up leaving one of the jobs and just really taking time for myself by going to the gym and doing things that I liked, going to the river with Sax or whoever it was, Slade, and we would go and, just hang out and have a good time. Whereas before, it was just stuck in that routine. And I think it is good to have a routine, but I was just stuck in a routine that I didn't want to be in. So for the people that do have to, kind of have to commit themselves to that, what advice do you give to somebody like that?
Well, as I'm listening to you and you've created this new life, for me, it's the feeling that you've created through these things that you've found that you love. It's the feeling. It's not the doing. It's not the doing the things. I always say it's not the doing, it's the being. And when you can step into a state of beingness and you can be present in the moment and you're experiencing joy. There's a difference between happiness and experiencing joy, because it's speaking from the heart instead of just doing something every day because you have to do it. Well, for those that have to do something, perspective is everything. And I talk about that in my book. There was a few years when I was struggling. I was struggling to teach karate because I felt that there was so much something else that I was supposed to be doing, your soul calling. And I was writing but I didn't know how to step into it. And I fell into a state of fear, and my mind went into this loop of doing instead of being. Before martial arts and teaching was everything to me, because I could see the best in somebody who couldn't see it in themselves. And I lost that perspective for a while. And it nearly crushed me. It nearly dropped me to my knees, because I wasn't being anymore. I was doing in order to survive. And I think that any time that we're doing anything in order to survive, we're not fully living the life that we're meant to live. But sometimes it's as easy as changing your perspective and recognizing, what does this give me? How does it serve me? How can I help others through this? Because you can help somebody else. It doesn't matter what job you do. One smile that you give to somebody when you're there can change somebody else's life. So I think that it's a matter of recognizing that I can either choose to hate this, or I can choose to be my best in this, and I can be instead of do this job. So for me, I think that would be my greatest advice to somebody is, are you doing or are you being?
Makes sense. I think for some people too, they're not in a job that they truly love, and so it's hard to be that. But I think that's a different problem. Also, that's something that you probably just should step away from entirely and find something that you do want to be and not do.
Yeah, what do you think keeps us trapped in these places that we don't want to be, and our souls screaming for us to do something else? And you know what genuinely most of the time happens is you end up getting sick, or something happens in order, like your higher self is pushing you out. Like it's asking you, it's that a voice in your head that's saying, this is not what you want to be doing. You know there's something greater that you're supposed to be doing, and you just keep doing it because you don't know what else you're supposed to do. But pretty soon, after you've ignored spirit and spirit slapped you across the face, I don't know how many times, for me, probably took 1,000, of all these things, in order to thrust me into what it was that I truly needed to be doing in this life. But sometimes fear keeps us trapped for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's true. It is true. It's hard to escape, you know? It's like, it's an addiction in a lot of ways. Like, a lot of people have these feelings of depression and anxiety and whatever else, you know? And just like the good times and the good things in life, those hard things can become addictive. It's like, obviously, I love golf. I love the gym. I love family. I love spending time doing those things, and they've become an addiction for me. You know, it's like I'm doing them because at this point I just have to. It's like I love it so much that I have to do it.
They create the feeling.
Right. In the same sense as those feelings themselves can do, like the depression and the loneliness and all that. It's like a lot of times I'll be feeling this sadness or this loneliness and just sitting around doing nothing about it. And then I'll go and experience something that was fun, and I was, grateful to be doing that. But then it's like, oh wait, no, I was feeling sad. I should be feeling sad still. Why was I happy? What? And not really like I'm asking myself why was I happy, but it's like, oh no, I was feeling sad. So I got to go back to being sad. It's like I became addicted to that feeling, and so now I'm just pulling that feeling right back in. And next thing you know, I'm lonely and sad again. It's like, I don't understand really what that is. I'm no psychologist, but I think that we, like you said, we become our thoughts, and whatever we're thinking about the most is what we're going to stay the most.
Absolutely. And this story that we tell ourselves is sometimes detrimental. And that's what creates the sadness, because sadness can only be created from the past. Something like we're not living in the present, like I said before. So you're either thinking about the past or thinking about the future, but you're not in the present. And so it creates this like feelings of whatever may be your limiting belief, like I'm not enough. Look at me, I'm not enough. I don't have a job. You're right. Everybody's right about me. Like I'll never be good enough. I'll never be a success. And so it's that ego mind. And I talk a lot about this mind in the book, and it wants to control us, and it wants to sabotage us by keeping us stuck in the matrix of fear, living in the past or living in the future and not being in the present moment. So the only way that we can change that is through questions and through setting in the present. How many times have you really just sat there and ever said, why is my body feeling like it's feeling? Is this mine? Is it somebody else's? Is there something that I need to clear? Have you ever scanned your body and been like, oh, I'm tight here, or I'm feeling heavy here? What is that saying to me? Ask your body, what are you trying to tell me? Have you ever scanned your body and been like, oh, those emotions, like scanned your body for trapped emotions? That's heavy. Like, how can I release and remove that? Like, have you ever scanned your body and just listened to the mental thoughts that you're playing over and over and over again? And is that where you want to stay? The problem is that we're not willing to take the time to recognize that there's another voice. There's another voice that's not an earthbound voice. There's a voice that has a higher perspective that can always change that if we're willing to go within. That's only connected through the heart center. I do believe that that's where everything opens up inside of you, is that center of connecting to that place that we're so much bigger than the human body.
Yeah, you said something about, is this even mine? Like, I'll get that feeling every once in a while after I've been around people that I feel uncomfortable with. Like you leave, or you're in the room, or you leave the room and you're like, man, that was weird. And then you're just left with this tight feeling. Like a lot of times you can even feel that when you like that'll hold on to you for days at a time. And then you won't even realize that that's where these feelings are coming from. But what is your advice on like being able to let those things go? If for the people that can realize where that's coming from,
First and foremost, I think that you have to allow yourself to sit with it. And you have to get to a place where that story is no longer creating. Sometimes I always say your story is creating a way out for you. Like, well, if I have this sickness, then I don't have to go to work.
Right.
If I feel this way, then I can get out of this. So oftentimes the story is creating something for us to not have to do. So we have to be able to step outside of that and those thoughts and beliefs and be like, why do I need this protection? How is it protecting me? Why do I need it? And so I think is becoming real with yourself and saying, I don't need to live in this state of fear anymore. I can step into a higher state of thought and higher state of being, but I can also choose to stay in this dump hole if that's what I want to do.
Right.
Like, we're that powerful. That's how powerful we are. So recognizing that your own power, but you can't simply do it by not doing the work. And that's the problem, is most people don't want to do the work. They want somebody else to do it for them. And yeah, there's a lot of work that can be done for other people, but you find your greatest evolution through understanding yourself on a deeper level. And why am I holding on to this depression?
Yeah.
What happened to me? People experience trauma every day in their lives, and trauma to one person is a huge, huge thing. And trauma to another person may be that they stepped on a pencil and broke it that day.
Right. The worst thing that happened to you is the worst thing that happened to you. For some people, it is stepping on a pencil. It's the worst thing that's happened to them.
So you don't know what creates those traumatic events, and they are real. And recognizing that every time we experience that same feeling throughout our lives that we felt when we had that traumatic event is creating a trigger, and it's pushing us right back into the state that we were in when we felt that. And until we can allow ourselves to feel that on a level that can release it, we hold that in the cells and tissues of our body.
Yeah.
And it continues to pull us back into depression or sadness or fear or anger or hate. It doesn't matter what it is. And then we call people into our lives because we love each other that much that they get to be the son of a gun, the son of a bitch, because they are showing up the way we need them to show up, because we can't see it in ourselves.
Right.
We can't see it in ourselves, but we sure can see that they're a jerk.
Yeah.
We can see it in them, but we can't see it in ourselves. So the people show up for us. I always say, like your kids and your husband, why are they always have to be the ones that end up hurting you the most? It's because they love you the most. And I do believe that we have soul contracts to help each other to evolve to our next highest state of being. Like, I don't know what it is that you came to this life to learn. Like I always say, I'm pretty sure I come here to learn forgiveness, because a lot of times in my life I've had to forgive. I've had to forgive a lot of things and I would never change what I've been through in this life, because it has put me where I am and made me who I am because of those experiences. And the people who I may have thought one time were the devil, I now truly see them as the angels that they are. Because they're a part of me showing myself what I need to be.
Right. I like that. That's sweet. I was just thinking, like, this Wayne Dyer quote, like, you can have an orange. You might know this quote better than me, actually. If you have an orange and you squeeze it, you're always going to get orange juice. You're never going to have an orange and squeeze it and get apple juice, because it's not an apple, Exactly. And it's the same thing with a person. As a person, if you have something happen and you react in a bad way, it's probably because that's what's inside of you. It's probably because, like, if your house burns down and motherfucker, like that, why did this happen to me? Why is this? It didn't happen to you. The house just burnt down. Like, it just happened. Could have been the neighbors. It could have been anybody else's. It wasn't. But what is coming out of you is that what was already in you, just what you already were.
Absolutely.
I think that I don't know. I heard that quote just not too long ago, scrolling through Instagram or something, and I was like, man, sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I forget that the way I react, and I've always tried to be fairly neutral with, when bad things happen. It's like things will happen with a car, and so like, well, things happen, but every once in a while I forget, and I'm like, mother. you know and and then I have to sit with myself and realize, like, okay, what is that? Like, what do I need to work through so I can let go of that emotion that I had when this thing happened? Because it just happened. There's nothing I can do about it now. It's already done, other than take care of it. So what emotions do I need to work through to be able to just let it go? Like,
Well, and you're in a good place because you're recognizing that you don't like what you're seeing. A lot of people are still asleep to that. And, awakening is about becoming conscious enough that you can recognize that you don't like your own behaviors. It's not about somebody else's behaviors, it's your own behaviors. And I think that even when you're in a state, we're still striving to be that. I mean, I started laughing when you were telling that story because you went up north with me the other day, but you ended up riding home with your brother. And you know that I just got a new windshield last week. And on the way home, a rock this big come flying at my window and hit it. And I said, son of a bitch. Like, I was so mad. Well, it didn't even crack the windshield, but I sure made a jerk out of myself. Yeah. And I later thought I did the same thing. I sat there, and what created that reaction in me, like I hadn't even paid for the windshield yet. Like, I haven't got the bill, and here it is going to be broken again. And it just sent this anger through me. And I'm like, what makes us react on that level so quickly? And but I do love the fact that I am now conscious to what I don't like that I'm witnessing within myself. And that is, the journey to consciousness, the great awakening that we have within us, and knowing that we don't want to be that person. We want to be so much more. And there's going to be days when we fall into that state, and then we have to be quick to forgive ourselves. And I talk about that too. The greatest form of self-destruction and the lowest vibration known to mankind is the hate that we hold towards ourselves, and the guilt and the shame and the pain. And if we can be quick to forgive ourselves and love ourselves, even when we weren't perfect or we made a mistake, I think that is maybe reaching a higher state of consciousness than anything.
Yeah, I think so. I like to think of myself sometimes as like this, you kind of been like saying like a story, the storyline. I like to think of myself as like a character in like a sitcom or something. I think that's fun sometimes, because it's not like I can think of my emotions as not real, if that makes sense. It's like I can just think of it as like, oh no, this was just part of the storyline for today. And tomorrow, that's not even going to exist anymore. Like, it's just going to be a different episode, and we'll never even bring that one up again. And so I'm just able to create these new storylines and think of myself in this story, in this character type aspect. This fly.
And that's what I love about the generation of kids that are here. They're so highly evolved, and they are already coming with this knowing of what to do to heal these aspects within themselves, where I would take clients and teach them about timeline therapy and how to step outside of their body and witness their story, that, the story that they're seeing. And here Derek is already doing it, and I haven't even taught him that. I do believe that this generation of kids are already highly evolved and here to teach us. And I hope that the adults in the society can recognize that maybe our youngest children are way more highly evolved than we are, and that we need to listen and respect as if we respect ourselves and respect them, and that we can learn from them. I love that. I know that. I've always known that with you kids. Like, this generation is so amazing.
You said like highly evolved. Do you think that like a reincarnation type thing is like, do you believe in that?
I do believe in reincarnation. Like I said before, I don't think we're ever born or we ever die. I think our soul is continuing, growing and evolving and reaching higher states of consciousness and being. And yeah, I think that maybe we're multidimensional beings, and this is getting pretty tricky because a lot of people will think that I'm nuts, but I believe in dimensions, and that the aspect of me that sends these messages through my books is just a part of me that is already reached a higher state of this beingness.
I don't think that sounds crazy, because I think even science believes that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like you've probably heard of like the multiverse, or like this idea of multiple universes coexisting, and that everything that has happened or will happen is probably happening or happened in a million other different ways, simultaneously or at different times. I don't really know exactly, but yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. It makes you wonder though, like when you go to sleep and wake up, if you're just waking up in a different reality every single day. But also, I think that's kind of true whether or not you actually are, because every single day is different in its own aspect anyway. But
Absolutely. And if we treated every day as if it was the only moment that we had and the only moment that was real, it would be a new aspect of reality, because it is like when I say presence, I think of a present like a gift. It's like this gift that we're giving ourselves. So, yeah, I think you're right about that.
mm,
Yeah, and it does get complicated for people who have never explored that aspect. But what if we could live in a world where we could listen to what somebody else had to say and we didn't judge it, and we just, does this resonate with me? No, throw it away. Does this resonate with me? Yeah, it actually speaks to my soul. It does resonate with me. And then you go inward, and then you connect with it even more. Where I always tell people, you know what, don't take what I say, don't take what my book says, and don't make it all of everything. No, sit with it. Does it speak to you? Does it resonate with you? Great. Then it's part of your truth and your reality. But if it's not, that's okay too.
yeah.
I hope you still love me. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest things in life, is that we all want to be loved and accepted, even if we don't believe the same as somebody else.
100%. Well, I think that was really good. Is there anything else that you want to bring up?
No, maybe I could leave you with one of my poems.
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah. Yeah, leave me with a poem, and then can I have you, after that, say the name of the book, where people can find it, and if you'd like, shout out your like Instagram and Facebook and different social medias.
Okay. I'm going to read two. These are the end of chapter 2 in my book. The first one's called The Dreamer. Asleep, the dreamer dreams, birthing the mind from the belief that separation brings. You quickly become the body and the mind. Through the birth, the peace and presence of me you will no longer find. On the surface, the dream seems real, but deep within, it's me you feel. Awaken, my dreamer, for it is I in you. The personal mind that was birthed must no longer ensue. Remember the gift of love's pure light. It is I that is your true birthright. Let go of the dreams and visions that have clouded your senses. I would never leave you alone and defenseless. The resurrection is symbolic of being birthed again. Get silent, and you will awaken to the truth that I am within. You are the dreamer and the dream. Remember, dreams are never as real as they seem. The remedy is to awaken and allow the personal dream to cease. In this new state of mind, you will forever live in my presence and peace. It's talking about source energy and connection as all that is, and being one with your higher self.
I like that.
And then this other one is called United as One, Divided We Fall. As the shadows of darkness have cast a spell upon this great land, prophecy speaks of a light that the darkness cannot withstand. This light is a love that reigns pure and true. It was a gift that was given to all, not just a few. Don't let your beliefs in earthly matters cause separation. It is time for us to stand together as a nation. Together is how we will win this fight. Learning to love one another will set things right. Let go of the fear that the dark ones have rendered true. It's only through hate that this lower resonance can ensue. Look deep within the recesses of your heart. It is there you will regain a love that cannot be torn apart. Let go of all the incessant thoughts of division. Imagine a world where that could be created from a sentient decision. I implore you to go within. It is where my light has always been. Consciously, we will take back this great land as we join together hand in hand. The light of the world is in you and me, and with this knowledge, we will create the world that we want to see. A world where peace and love will forever reign free.
Nice. All right, name a book, where people can find it.
Both of my books are on Amazon, or you can pick them up at my house. I will have them here as soon as I get them.
Sweet. Are you going to be doing any shipping? Like, does Amazon actually ship?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep, they'll ship it right to your door.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's called Journey to Consciousness, The Great Awakening, and that is by Dena Kay Nielson, my wonderful mom. Social medias, want to shout those out?
I am on Facebook at Dena Nielson.
Awesome.
Yep, and also on Instagram, also Dena Nielson.
Cool.
So.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think that people have a lot to gain from the conversation that we had, and not only that, but I'm excited for you with this, and I'd like to read it, and I want to see if I can gain anything from it as well. So
thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you know where you can find it. So thanks, Mama.
Thank you.